Hi, this is the UFM show, and I'm Rhonda Keith. We're out here at Jim Kientz's farm in Wamego today to talk about the Amazon Basin Food Project that he founded. Thanks for bringing us out here today, Jim.
Thank you. It's really having you people out here visiting the farm and see what I do during 6 months here, and maybe we'll be able to show a few things about what I do the other 6 months a year in Brazil.
Okay. You grew up here, didn't you?
Yeah, I came here in 1945 with my parents. So I've been here farming, off and on for probably 30 to 40 years. And I've been working with my dad here. And I used to be a school teacher, and I taught in Manhattan High for 2 years.
What did you teach?
I taught physics there. And then I kind of got tired of teaching school after 11 years and started looking for some other kind of occupation during the winter months, and we started this down here in Brazil in 1981.
How did you happen to start that? Had you been to Brazil before?
Yeah, I had visited Brazil a couple times, and
just as a tourist?
Yeah, a tourist with my dad, and so I was familiar with the area that I ended up going to. I like working in areas that were undeveloped. This was mostly jungle area, and we had pioneers coming in, and I've always been interested in pioneers, so that's how I started going down there. But,
who are the pioneers in the jungle there? Where are they from?
They're mostly from the northeastern part of Brazil. They were poor people that didn't have much land in Brazil, and their little 2-acre farm had been divided up over and over again until finally they had practically no land at all. And they were looking for some new land, and so they moved into the jungle areas and they just keep moving farther and farther into the jungle.
How was their land getting divided up?
Well, a person would have maybe 6 or 8 kids, and maybe 3 or 4 of those children would want to come back to the farm, and he'd have maybe 2 acres to start with, and then then it gets down to a 1/4 acre, a 1/2 acre, and then it's not feasible for them to farm at all. So in Brazil, we have a lot of land, billions of acres of land that's not being used. So they finally started to move out. A lot of them were starving to death, too, when they have a drought. The northeastern part of Brazil some years gets very dry, and some years as many as 1 million people will die. So they've been moving out of the drought-stricken area, moving more into the jungle, where they have the opposite situation, where they're getting tremendous rainfall, maybe 200 inches of rain. So it's a new experience for them when they come into the jungle. Okay.
You weren't a typical tourist then?
No, I went down there first time. We were looking at land, and I think I changed a lot over the years. I think when I first went there, I was interested in buying land too. The land was so cheap, we could buy it for a couple $2 an acre at that time. But
as an investment or to farm?
Yes, but trouble is, most of the time Americans would go down there buy way too much land, far more than they could ever possibly farm, and then they'd end up losing it. So, but the trouble is, if you're going in there to farm, you run a risk of getting shot, because people do not like foreigners coming in and taking over large sections of their land. So I've had 2 friends of mine that were shot and killed down there. So I didn't care to go down there to do that kind of work, and I went down there. Went through a religious renewal where I went down to help poor people, not to take care of my own selfish interests. So
not to profit from them.
Yeah, not to profit. So I've no desire to own land down there now, and working with poor people is a very rewarding kind of work down there. So that's it.
Well, usually when someone like me who knows nothing about farming thinks about the jungle, you think that that's a place where you can grow anything. And how can people starve in the jungle? So how do
Well,
they?
they don't. There's not as many starve in the jungle as they do in the drought-stricken area. We don't see too many people starving to death in the jungle. But what we do see is people that are malnourished, and then certain times of the year where there may be a crop failure, then they have to live without food or maybe have one meal per day. So you do see quite a few people malnourished, but the problem we have with people down there is that it's a combination of poor hygiene, malnourishment, and lack of medical care, which causes about 20% of our children die before they're 5 years of age. And that's about 20 times what it is here. So, but it's not just hunger, and it's a combination of many things. And people living in the jungles, well, they may have one doctor for 15,000 people. That's compared to maybe 1,000 people or 700 people per doctor here. So it's very hard for them to get medical care. It's hard for them to get a variety of food. And
The growing conditions aren't quite that good either, as you would think.
well, they're not. Sometimes of the year they're pretty good. Now, like this time of year in Brazil, in the part I'm from, they can raise pretty good vegetables. Now, 2 or 3 months from now, they can't raise anything. It's too wet. They go 65 inches of rain in about 6 months, and then they have six months of no rain at all. So they may get a 10-inch rain. Well, that's very difficult to do some farming. So maybe 1 in 3 years they won't get a crop. But the biggest problem is they don't have money to buy fertilizer. They don't have credit. They can't go to the bank and get money because they have nothing for collateral. They have nothing they can call their own. So they don't get fertilizer, so they farm until they use what fertilizer is there, and then they move to a new piece of land, and then they farm it for 2 or 3 years and zap all the nutrients out of it, and then they move again. So, but the land is not very fertile, and they wouldn't expect them to get more than 1/3 what you'd expect to get here in the United States.
So then what did you do in 1981? You went down there and you started something new.
Well, when I went there in 1981, first time I went there, I didn't know people down there, so I just went down and looked around. And I met this Catholic bishop down there, and he says, go out and live in the villages for a while and see what you want to do. So I went out and lived in the villages and studied their problems, and it came back. I decided, yes, that's what I'd like to do, work out in the villages. So I started working in vegetables and raising vegetables just like we do here on the farm. But I found that I was really down there at the wrong time of year. When I was there, it was a wet year, wet season, and they get 10 inches rain, we get all kinds of diseases, and the vegetables just weren't any good. And they would raise pretty good vegetables during the dry season. Well, that's the time I'm up here in the United States. So, but we got started selling vegetables, and that was something that worked real well. The people said the poor people wouldn't buy vegetables because they didn't have any money, they didn't know what they were. But we found that they would be buying some. They wouldn't be buying a lot of vegetables, but they'd buy some. And
Where'd you get these vegetables?
We'd buy them from the city market. We'd have a fairly large city close by, and they'd buy some, and then we would instruct them on how to prepare them, and they would buy some more, and it kind of helped in their diet. So they would have a bigger variety of foods, and a lot of times more nutritious food. So we were helping a very large number of people. It's not a home garden or a community garden. You're working with maybe 40 or 50 people, working with a community store and distributing vegetables to each village. You could work for several thousand people. So with a small amount of money, worked with thousands of people. So that's how we got started in the working with distributing vegetables and marketing vegetables.
We'll be back in a minute.
The first fiddle I ever had was picked up a board and had a limb of a tree.
Tatting has been an outlet for women's desire to do something pretty. And even the people who came in covered wagons, the women were tatting on the way.
I got started by watching my father and grandfather whittle wood on Sunday afternoons.
Part of my job at the Kansas State Historical Society is to show people that we are who we are because of our particular past. To me, history is a thread, a continuum. It doesn't stop or start. But it's so important to provide an atmosphere for traditions like these to continue. That's what we're doing at the State Historical Society. We're not just documenting the past, but instead we're here to educate and encourage people and to celebrate our heritage.
There's a lot of history in the future of Kansas.
Hi, we're back with Jim Kientz talking about the Amazon Basin project. So when you started this, did you do this all by yourself? You said you'd met a bishop down there, and how did you go about setting this up?
Okay, well, what happened, I went down there and we started raising vegetables and found that I was raising them the wrong time of year, and then we started marketing. Well, then we started asking for funds in the area of marketing of vegetables, but not only vegetables, other foods as well, in the remote villages of the jungle.
You were asking for funds among the Brazilians?
No, among here people in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
The first ones that gave us some funds were the Friends, or the Quakers in the United States, and to do more in the area of marketing to poor people in the remote villages. And after that, we began to organize. And up to that time, I was the only one that was doing any of the work in that area. Then we received more money from the Presbyterian Church and some of the Catholic groups, and we'd established an organization there called PABA, or the Amazon Basin Food Project, and we have a manager there, and we have about 10 employees. These are full-time employees. One's a truck driver. 3 or 4 of them are involved in collecting information. One of them is in charge of taking care of the finances of the selling of things, and some of them are involved in teaching. This would be teaching about cooking and how to, for hygiene and health and nutrition, all these things.
So this organization has really grown. You have a bigger staff, and you do a lot more than you originally thought of.
Yeah, we do a lot more. This last year we started in consulting with doctors and county agents and the teachers for illiterate people, collecting information for them in the communities, because we're the ones that are out in the villages, and we're familiar with the people there, and we know, can find out where the problems are. Like, for example, what people haven't got their vaccine yet, or what people haven't been tested for worms, or any number of things that about the conditions in the community that we could relate to the public servants. Now, that's a new area we've got into this last year. We think by doing that, the public servants will be a lot more effective. The medical doctors that work for the government, the county agents, and the teachers that work for the government there. There's so many people in the jungles that are just kind of fall through the cracks. Nobody seems to know they're there, and we think that's part of our mission, to go and to locate these people and either bring them to attention to the doctors or other people in the community, or see that they come in and see the doctors. So, but yeah, we branched out quite a bit. We started out just selling vegetables, then we got into the education aspect, consumer education, talking about nutrition, hygiene, health care, all of these things. But our main concern is for the young children under 5 years of age. They're the ones that are the most vulnerable. They've, like I say, 20% of them will die. And after they get above 5, very few people die until they reach an old age. But so anything we can do to protect their lives up to the age of 5, we'll be involved in that. But yeah, it's grown tremendously in the last 2 or 3 years. Yeah.
And I know your list of supporters has grown too.
Yes, yes. We started out with the Quakers and the Presbyterians, and we've grown into several denominations now, a wide range of denominations, liberal, conservative, Protestant, Catholic denominations are involved in the project.
And you're going back in a few weeks, aren't you?
Yeah, I'll be going back the 18th of October.
And how long will you stay?
Well, normally I stay until the around the 15th of April. Now there's two reasons for that. One is I have a visa for only 6 months. The other reason is that's about the time we start harvesting. Or start planting. Yeah,
Planning.
yeah.
Harvesting now.
Yeah, harvesting now. Right, right.
And what are you going to do exactly down there? What, a little of everything?
Well, I usually fill in where they need me. Last year I did truck driving, and I did kind of took care of the education aspect. I'm not sure this year. We hope to get somebody else to do the education aspect, but I would imagine I'll still have to fill in some on the truck driving type thing. I do a lot of the planning down there, and like computer analysis, I do that for them, and usually I do the things that they can't do, and anything that requires a large amount of technical skill, well, then I come in and do that. Anything that doesn't require that, then have somebody there that does that. We don't want to, we want them to have as many jobs down there as they can, so not to have Americans down there filling job positions. Yeah, they've got 30–40% unemployment down there. They need a lot more jobs down there.
Yeah, I've heard that Brazil has an unbelievable inflation rate too.
Yes. There for a while it was 1,000% for a year, and that really hurt the project because the people that were the peasants living in the country did not enjoy that kind of inflation, and so the food items went up considerably in price, and the poor people didn't have the money, an increase in the amount of value of their money to pay for it. So we haven't been quite as effective as we were 6 months ago because of the high inflation.
When you go down there and help with the planning and stuff, how does it differ from your work here? The equipment and the techniques differ?
Well, agricultural person does not have money to buy equipment, so most of it has to be done by hand. And the agriculturally is quite a bit different in that the diseases and the insects are different. The growing conditions are different, the soil is different. So when I first went down there, it took me a couple years to learn how to farm down there, even though I had gone to school for 6 or 8 years in agriculture here and farmed for many years. I found so much of it not applicable because the conditions down there were considerably different.
So you're not down there riding around in your John Deere tractor?
No, we don't have tractors. We try to have irrigation pumps, and that's about as far as mechanization goes. Yeah. There are people there that do have tractors, but we don't. We haven't been that much involved in the farming aspect, other than to get food for our own project. We've not. It takes a tremendous amount of capital. We don't have that kind of capital.
I was wondering if Brazil has anything comparable to our Ag Extension Service.
Well, they have the county agents, and we work with those, but they do not have the women that work with the nutrition and cooking and sewing and these types of things. And we've kind of had to fill in for that. We've had to take the job of the home demonstration agent and do their work for them there. Now, some communities have them, but in most of the regions of the Amazon, they do not have women extension agents. It's a vicious circle. The government does not think nutrition is important. The reason it doesn't think it's important because they haven't ever been educated about it. So they don't allot any money for nutrition education. They don't know that it's important, and people don't know it's important either. So it's very unfortunate that they should have someone in the government doing that job, but right now we're doing the job for them.
But you're kind of breaking new ground.
Yes, it's very expensive to be doing teaching about health, teaching about nutrition, and really I don't know if a project of our type is really have that kind of money to deal with the thousands of people involved. I doubt if we would ever have that much. But,
What do you think the population is in the area you're working with?
well, we're working with about 20 villages. Then they have a population of around average maybe 300 to 400 each. So we're working with probably between 3,000 and 4,000 people every year.
Are you looking to increase the number of villages you work with?
Yeah, we add a village every month, or a little over a month, and so I think we've got about 10 or 12 right now, and we've got the next 8 or so figured out that we're going into those areas. But and as soon as we get through there, we'll probably go over to a new area and start working there too. So.
You said you don't want to send a lot of Americans down there to take jobs and so on. Are you a volunteer?
Yes, I'm a volunteer. I have never received money for the work down there.
Are there any other Americans who go down there and work in this project?
There's one nun there working. She is not really a volunteer particularly, but she is working in that area too. But she doesn't do too much with the project, but she's working in that area. That's the only Americans in that region. Yeah.
You said you don't know the language all that well. How do you make out, or do your friends down there speak English?
Well, no. That was one of the things that you had to learn or leave went there because nobody spoke English. So I don't know it well enough that I can get up in a group of peasants and explain it so everyone can understand. And they're very suspicious to see a foreigner coming in and getting up and talking a lot because they've never seen a foreigner before. So that's a problem. But I can, if somebody comes and talks to me individually, then I can understand pretty much all of what they're saying, and after a while they can usually understand what I'm saying. So, but some of the peasants do not understand. So I normally don't get up and talk in groups. So we have teachers doing that for me.
And that makes it challenging.
Yeah. And then the teachers understand my pig Portuguese or whatever it is. They understand it. So.
How are you publicizing this project here and in Brazil?
Well, we have this brochure here that.
Brochure.
Yeah. That we published this year. So far, we haven't done too much work locally because we have been getting funds from the national level. And
you're talking about here in the States?
Yeah, in the States, yes. And we haven't done. We've done some we have one brochure we send out in Brazil, but we are thinking more of doing local work here in the United States. We would like to get a church or a civic group to sponsor a village in Brazil where they could provide whatever that community needed, and they could do it over a 2 or 3 year period, whatever they wanted to do, and then we would be responsible to see that the job gets done, and then we would be responsible to send back a verification, photos and the like that the job was completed. In Brazil, it's very easy to see progress being made. It's a lot easier there than it is here. So much of the time we do things here in the United States, it's very difficult to see whether we've really made any progress. Down there, it's a small investment, and you can see tremendous progress being made. Well, I think maybe in some respect I've been a little bit selfish when I come back here saying all the progress we've been making in Brazil. And here it may be very difficult for people to enjoy that kind of progress. And so we would like people here to share in the progress being made down there, to be a part in the community development in Brazil.
Well, at the end of the show, we'll let people know how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah. We'd like to have a church or a civic group involved, not necessarily individuals. We'd and it'll be work with the community down there through a community activity, not with individuals down there either.
Okay, well, we're just about out of time. We didn't get to talk about everything that I would have liked to. But I think this is a real interesting project. There's not too many things that we can see like this that one man started.
No, and I certainly didn't do it alone. As soon as we got started on marketing, there seemed to be a tremendous interest came in on that.
That's something that's unusual too. When you think of projects that are, you might call charitable, you don't think of selling things to people. That's kind of different too.
Yeah, well, the poor people need food too, and so much of the time the food is not made available to them. There's no stores there. What stores are there, they have maybe only 4 or 5 items is all they're selling, and people need a bigger variety in that. And so oftentimes people say, well, the poor people don't have any money, there's no need trying to sell it to them, and so as a consequence they never have the food available.
I can see too that in time this kind of community organization and contact with, at least with one foreigner, is going to affect their lives in other ways in the long run.
Yeah, well, so much of what has happened in the case of foreigners down there has been negative. And it does give them a possibility of seeing that that foreigners can be involved with poor people other than in a negative type of action. So.
Well, I'm glad you're doing that for us.
Yeah.
And thanks a lot for being with us today and telling us about your project.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Come on.
So.
Thanks for being with us, and join us again next week in the UFM show. Hi, this is the UFM show, and I'm Rhonda Keith. We're back with punks in Manhattan, and as you've just seen, there's a whole bunch of punks here in the 7-Eleven. They're right here in the 7-Eleven by the Christian College down on Anderson Avenue. Chip Anderson, coincidentally, your name is the same as the street name. Chip Anderson is the manager of 7-Eleven. What are you going to do with all these punks in your store?
Well, they're probably my best customers. They come in, they buy the hot dogs, they play the video games, they keep an eye on things for me. You know, if I need to go out back and empty some trash, they're going to let me know if something's happening in here that shouldn't be. So, you know, I don't consider them punks. I consider my best customers. I treat them with the utmost respect.
Well, that must be because they've been treating you okay, right?
Yes, you know, the common misconception about punks is that they have a tendency to cause trouble. And that's not true. I've seen more people that come in here are the preppy, average, regular Joe who goes to high school or college. They're the ones who cause the trouble. They come in here and they cause most of the trouble. You know, they smart off to the person behind the counter, or, you know, try to steal things from me or whatever. And in fact, every one of these punks over here, they've never done anything to make me think anything bad about them, you know. That's all I have to say about that.
How do you account for that? Usually we think guys who dress with chains, you know, on their clothes and stuff like that are pretty tough, and the guys who dress nice, clean-cut boys are nice boys.
Well, I think the reason you have a tendency to think that people who are dressed in the chains and the leather and all that other stuff are tough is because of the old motorcycle gangs. I think you know, they were always dressed in the same type of gear, and they caused trouble. I mean, you know, I don't want to be caught in the same areas with them as I would like to be caught with these guys. You know, it's just something, unfortunately, just because of the things they wear, they are thought of the same thing as a Harley-Davidson gang or whatever, you know.
So I guess the moral of this is we can't judge people by their clothes.